Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Williams, and I'm here with my tag team partner, Blake Castetter. Monday, guys. Blake, week's crazy turns, injuries, guys coming in, starting. What are some of the storylines from week 7?
Squads getting hurt. Like entire receiving corps, squads. I mean, Monday Night Football just it was a fallout at the wide receiver position. I mean, man, Tampa Bay. Could you imagine hosting Monday Night Football, being there, watching the game in person? Evans goes
Oh,
down, and then Godwin goes down.
I mean, it was Mike Evans had the hamstring issue going into the game, and you knew after he caught his first touchdown, I was like, man, if you've ever had a hamstring injury, ladies and gentlemen, once that thing starts to go a little bit, you're done. And he tried to catch that second ball, and that thing just went on him. Like he was like somebody sniped him from the top deck of the stadium. But and then my Chris Godwin, oh, that was brutal. Like brutal in terms of the injury, but brutal to the fact again, we talked about this in our first episode, how crazy good Chris Godwin has been in fantasy over the last several years.
1,000-yard receiver consistently, and then putting him back in the slot this year. Ooh, he was going to be top 10. I mean, I know he's already top 10, but I had him pretty high.
Yeah,
So
I
now
did
with
too. What
the
else?
injuries, who's the man to own, and who's the receiver to own? Who's the threat to own as a whole in Tampa Bay? Is there someone you want to have?
I would say at this point, McMillan. I mean, or definitely Kate Otten. I mean, we talked about him for the last several weeks actually, and it's kind of come full circle. Like he might be the guy in Tampa, and then you got the three-headed monster at running back. So I'm assuming they're going to try to get those guys the ball in space as well. But in terms of receiver, man, Tampa, they're slim pickings in Tampa. Slim pickings.
I'm kicking myself. I waited 1 week too long to pick up Otten. I wanted to get him last week and I didn't because it just didn't fit my roster right. And
Sure.
I mean, in the end, it worked out. I traded away a buy or a sell high on Mark Andrews, got some gold for him, had a tight end slot open as a result, went and had to pay for Otten, but I got him off the waiver wire and I plan on rolling with him. And I mean, he's getting targets. He was getting targets beforehand.
Yeah, yeah. I can honestly say in one of our leagues, I actually drafted him. And don't ask me why, and don't ask me how. I was assuming he was the backup to my starting tight end, but now he's an every week start. He's been an every week starter for me for probably the last month.
With the
So
tight
he's
end
definitely
position, that doesn't surprise me.
yeah, moving forward, he's a definitely plug and play every week. Tight end one, and probably every bit of a top 6 or 7 tight end.
Just on target share alone.
Exactly.
What about San Francisco? Ayuk goes down, ACL, MCL, done for the year. You got Debo, um,
Ooh.
sick, but also had fluid in his lungs, was taken to the hospital. Like, there's a chance that he misses time. What's the impact there? Who's the receiver threat to own in San Francisco?
Well, the impact there is obviously you talk about Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel; those are two of their studs, and then you don't have CMC either. So it looks like the passing game with Brock Purdy is going to suffer. And you can tell against Kansas City, they were struggling to get the ball down the field. If it wasn't for Kittle, God only knows where they would be. So I mean, I stashed Juan Jennings just in case something were to happen because of the situation in San Francisco with Ayuk kind of not playing well. And when Jennings got his opportunity, he actually played really well and balled out. So if I'm choosing between Purcell and Jennings, I'm taking definitely the veteran over the rookie at this point.
I would agree with you. Um,
Yep.
he did have 2 good weeks, and then he was back to a timeshare again. So looks like he's going to get his opportunity, and his target share did go up after um, Ayuk went out. So it looks like that just makes sense there. Other
Yep.
injuries this week, you had Jaden Daniels. dealing with a rib injury. Doesn't seem like it's going to be long term, but he might miss some time. So you have
Mhm.
Marcus Mariota coming in. Deshaun Watson. I mean, we all saw that live here in
Ooh,
Cincinnati. I saw it happen
we
live. I
did.
saw it just shoot up his leg, and it was like, oof,
Yep,
that's
we knew
Achilles.
immediately.
But my
Yep.
question is: famous Jameis an improvement in the fantasy world in Cleveland?
Yeah, he's an improvement in Cleveland, but not in the fantasy world. So I mean, I think he'll be better in terms of quarterback play than Deshaun Watson was. But at this point, I don't see any reason, any fantasy value for Jameis Winston moving forward.
I was talking about more around his surrounding cast, wide receivers,
Oh,
tight ends,
so
running backs. Does he improve their
uh,
fantasy value?
slightly.
He's
I
willing
don't
to
think the
throw the rock around.
yeah, I don't think it moves that much because of Cleveland's offensive line and the inability to protect the quarterback. I think they've given up the most sacks this year. So, and then Jameis is definitely not as mobile as Deshaun Watson. So that may be a serious problem. So would there be a little bit of an uptick? Yeah, but I don't see much.
Okay. And then most recent news yesterday, Andy Dalton in a car crash, injured thumb, already been ruled out this week. So we're back to Bryce Young. What does that do to Carolina's offense and the one player that they had in the receiving corps that you could count on in Deontay Johnson?
Well, it bumps Deontay Johnson down and also bumps Chuba Hubbard down. It bumps anybody that's skilled on their team down because of Bryce Young's inability to get the ball to his weapons unless something changes. And again, they're going up against Denver, not the defense you want to be going up against when you got your first game back in Denver. So I see all those skilled players in Carolina bumping down a little bit more, maybe more instead of maybe wide receiver 2 or 3, maybe or a running back 2. Maybe now they're all flex players.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust anybody in Carolina right now.
Nope.
Um, one other thing, Russell Wilson.
Russ.
Apparently, that's why Tomlin gets paid the big bucks. Is Russell Wilson worth a stash? Is he still fantasy relevant? 26 pass attempts in the first 3 quarters.
Is he fantasy relevant? Yes. Worth a stash? Not yet. Like I would rather stash at this point Drake May or Bo Nix. Either one of them at this point. One game against the Jets defense, let's be honest, it was not, I mean, they're not good. Like they came in ballyhooed and they said, oh, we had the offense to go with our defense and we got a chance to get to the Super Bowl. Listen, the offense is a problem. But honestly, Blake, I think the defense is a bigger problem because they have underperformed this year, uh, considering what they were talking about in the offseason and what they did last year.
I'm not opposed to stashing Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He's not there yet, but stash is a long-term play, not a next week start, 2 weeks from now start.
Sure.
I didn't take a second to look at his upcoming schedule, but if he's going to throw the rock 30 plus times a game with some
Mhm.
consistency, there might be a plug and play value there.
Yeah, I'd have to. I know they play the Giants Sunday night, so that'll be an interesting game. The Giants have actually a pretty good defensive line, so we'll
Hmm.
see how Russ does. Can he be consistent? Can he put the? Because that's always been Russell Wilson's deal. Like he'll have one good game, he'll have 2 bad games. He'll have one good game, he'll have 2 bad games. So let's see if he can be consistent and get back to the Russell Wilson like we all knew in Seattle.
Other news this morning that broke. Former top tier wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins heading to Kansas City. A lot of talk on social media about picking up DeAndre Hopkins and dropping XYZ.
I'm not there yet.
Neither am I.
Not in K's offense. Like they got so many weapons and they got so many options for Mahomes. I need to see it not inconsistently for at least a couple weeks before I would even consider uh picking him up over anybody that's on my team currently or anybody else on the wire.
Yeah. I mean, Juju went untouched in my waiver wire. No one ever picked him up.
Right.
And
And
that
that tells you
speaks
something
to,
right there.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
All right. So we are off of the DeAndre Hopkins bandwagon. This week we got no teams on bye. It's one of 2 weeks this season that's in the middle of the bye week extravaganza that there are no buys. Speaking of mid-season, you came up with a segment,
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
MVP candidates. Are we
Yeah.
talking fantasy MVP, right? Or are we talking NFL MVP?
I think there's a correlation between both, actually. I think we can talk MVP for the league and we can talk MVP for fantasy. So, in terms of if I had a vote, so here are the candidates. If you had a vote today, who are you picking? So we have, of course, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. We'd be remiss not to include those two right off the bat after what we saw Monday night. And then we got Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, and Joe Mixon. Interesting last three players in terms of even fantasy or NFL MVP. So, Blake, if you had one vote, who you got? One vote today.
Based on
this is good.
Yeah, draft value. That's what I have to base it on, because if you take a stud player in the first round and he's a stud, I think you drafted him to be a stud and you got what you expected. So I'm in the camp of either Derrick Henry or Jaden Daniels.
Oh, okay.
Derrick Henry was going mid to late second round. And he's a top 5 fantasy player right now. And then you've got Jaden Daniels, who nobody projected, for the most part, to be a QB1 this year. And he's right up there with the QB1s who you took in the 4th, 3rd, 5th round.
Right.
So if you waited on QB and you took Jaden Daniels as your QB1, that afforded you the opportunity to go out and spend draft capital on other players.
And some people did. I had a couple of people in my league that took him as their starting quarterback, which again, nobody knew he was going to tear the league up like he did. But if you're talking draft capital, Blake, and quarterbacks, I think you kind of got to go with Jared Goff if we're talking draft capital, because I would imagine in some leagues, Goff might have been picked behind Jaden Daniels. Maybe. I'm not sure about that. We have to see the ADP. But the string of games Jared Goff has put together over the last 3 weeks has been really impressive. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but again, they won all 3. He's had a perfect passer rating. I think he's had 3 incompletions in the other 2 games each. So if we're talking about where guys were drafted and what they're doing, I mean, I think you gotta mention Jared Goff. And who would have ever thought that Jared Goff would be in the MVP conversation, even when he was with the Rams, got shipped off to Detroit, and here he is.
I mean, they're all quality options. I mean, Derrick Henry is absolutely leading the way at the running back position.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's leading the way at the quarterback position. So it just really depends on your perspective. So to play off of your MVP, fantasy stud of the year, I tossed in a dud of the year. So this is going to be your high draft capital player. That just has not done what you would expect based on their draft position for whatever reason. It could be they got injured, which is kind of sucks. That's a little unfair to call them a dud if they've missed the majority of the season due to injury, but it's real. It could be due to their quarterback getting injured. So it's not necessarily that they didn't perform, but in the end, we spent draft capital as fantasy players on these athletes, and they are not holding up their end of the deal for one reason or another. Who is the biggest dud of the year so far from your perspective?
From my perspective, man, this is tough. I actually, this is hard, because a lot of it is contingent on what's around that person or what isn't around that person. So, I mean, I guess I got to go with either CMC or dude, man, CD Lamb. I got one guy who's playing. I got one guy who's not playing. CMC, obviously injuries, had no idea going in. Who knows when he's going to come back? And then CD Lamb obviously got all that money, and Dallas is just a mess. And I'll get to the Cowboys a little bit later in the show. But for all the ballyhoot and all the hype and all the CD, he deserves his contract, Justin Jefferson money, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, and you can point to a million reasons why ultimately when you're getting paid that much money, you should be playing better, which translates into fantasy points, and it's just not there with CD Lamb.
I agree. That's one of two players, maybe three, that are not dealing with injury, not dealing with
right
an injury across the board, whether it be a counterpart or himself. The other being
right.
Bijan Robinson. He's played all season.
Yep.
He's gotten the rock. He just hasn't really performed. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he was a top 15 pick, and he's had 3 weeks where he's done well. And the rest, he's basically ghosted, dudded. So based on draft capital alone, I'm picking Bijan Robinson.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Tyler Algier is
Bijan a pass over because I go ahead.
I would say Tyler Algier is still a warranted flex play in a lot of weeks based on his performance. Yep. He's outperforming Bijan Robinson in some areas.
Exactly. We didn't know what that timeshare would look like. We didn't know if it was going to be 50-50 or maybe we thought Bijan would get the majority of the carries, but that is not the case. And I mean, Tyler Algier is a great running back, and Bijan's a great running back. So, when you draft the guy that high, you expect him to get the majority. I mean, we're probably talking 85-15 or 80-20, not 50-50. And that's what Atlanta is. But again, knowing the history of the Falcons over the past couple of years, if you knew the stats, you can make an argument that Algier was the better back than Bijan Robinson, because obviously they were getting as the same amount of carries. So I agree with you a little bit. I do see glimpses of Bijan over the last 2 weeks becoming better and can maybe distance himself, but Atlanta's always going to run the ball. That's how they're made. Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. That's the foundation of their offense. We're going to run the ball, play action. Kurt's going to throw it behind the linebackers in front of the safeties, big plays like that.
Yes, we just hope we hoped that Bijan in year 2 would advance. We hoped that with the departure of the offensive coordinator to Pittsburgh, we thought all of these things were going to happen, and it was a lock that Bijan was going to be this stud, and we were wrong, I guess.
I think if you see on any other team, he blows it up. Like if he's on the Giants or anywhere, he does better. But he's with Atlanta, and Atlanta, they like to run the ball, and they like to have two backs that can run the ball. So I get it, and I get where you're coming from in terms of the Bijan pick. I mean, that's a tough category. I mean, those are all players that have had some sort of bad luck or some type of injury, and that every year you're going to have that in fantasy. Like you're going to have people get hurt. You're going to have somebody's quarterback get hurt. Therefore, their stock goes down, i.e. Tyreek Hill. So it's just a matter of having some depth. We always talked about you got to have depth, and then when your stars don't perform, you're just not going to win in fantasy. Like if your high performers aren't performing, you don't have a shot.
Period. I mean, you could even go as far down as go to ETN.
Yep,
he's being outperformed by Bigsby. Yeah, he's dealt with some injuries, but at the same time, he's played more weeks than not, and he's got at a risk of losing playtime to a second-year running back.
Yeah, I think it's even tougher when guys are playing. If guys are hurt, there's nothing you can do about it. They're not playing. But when guys aren't playing and playing and not producing, I think that's the most fun part, especially when they have high draft capital. When you got guys that are high picks and they're not playing or not performing, that is the most frustrating thing when you look at your fantasy team on a Tuesday morning. You're like, what the hell? What just happened? Where's this guy been? Oh man. Good segment, buddy. Good one.
That's when you Have to at some point make some moves. Shake and bake, make
Yep.
something happen.
Speaking of moves, who we going into our starts and sits for week 8? Week 8 already?
Let's
Woo,
move.
man, we are flying through the season. Yes. Okay, who's your start, Blake, at QB this week?
I can't believe I'm
Oh
saying this,
no,
but
I can't
after
believe I
week
just saw this.
after week 6's
Oh,
performance of 3.5 points, I am recommending that we start Dak Prescott. And he doesn't have a good matchup. He's got San
I'm listening.
Francisco.
I'm listening.
So here's my thought process. Is there any chance that Dallas, the offense, the defense, whatever, figured it out over the bye week? Maybe. I found a nugget that says that Dak has been pretty great following the bye weeks. In 7 career games following a bye week, he has averaged 28.1 fantasy points in those contests. And that's not because he had like a 70-point game and a bunch of 10-point games. He's only scored less than 22.5 points in 1 of those 7 contests. So Dak's good coming off of a bye. If the Dallas defense didn't figure it out as well on the bye week, San Francisco is going to put up points, even without Debo, even without Ayuk, even possibly without Kittle, who's banged up, maybe without Jennings, and without CMC. Jordan Mason alone can beat Dallas if their defense hasn't figured it out. So it's not a great matchup on paper, but it is. I have a gut feeling based on what they've done in the past, Dak has, and a negative game script, that Dak's going to throw the ball and put up points.
To say I'm surprised would be an understatement, but hey, you made your case. You made your case to the jury. We're going to revisit this next week. You know we are. We have to, because this is the first time I saw your starts and sits. I was like, oh, whoa, Dak, okay. But you made a case. I mean, the stats are there, and you're Dak's lawyer. You made your case to the fantasy world. Let's see if Dak can step up and perform.
Please, Dak, don't let me down. In Dak we trust. Let's go.
Yeah, in Dak we trust.
Your start of the week, I just traded away your start of the week. It's part of that big deal.
Okay.
I got Jaden Daniels. Let's roll.
All right. Well, my start of the week is none other than CJ Stroud, coming off the worst game, maybe definitely of his NFL career, maybe of his life. And this was the easy start for me. CJ is playing in a get-right game this week against the Colts, and look for big numbers from Mr. Stroud. I don't have all the stats. I don't need him. He played terrible. The Texans played terrible in terms of passing. I can see CJ totally rebounding against the Colts defense that's really not that good, playing at home. They still had a chance to win the game. As bad as he played, they still almost won the game because of Joe Mixon. I see CJ Stroud rebounding this week and having a big game against the Colts.
I agree with you. I kind of hope that doesn't happen, because I, again, traded him away. And not only did I trade him away, but I'm facing the person that I traded him to.
Ooh, watch out for that one. That's always a sticky situation right there. Like
now, the person that I got in exchange for CJ Stroud as part of that deal is my sit of the week. And I'm going to have to start him because I have Jaden Daniels as my starter. So my sit of the week, Brock Purdy.
Back weeks.
Yeah.
I sat him last week.
Yeah. And this has nothing to do with Brock Purdy's ability or his matchup, because both are good. But how do you start a guy in fantasy football that may be without his top 5 weapons? Ayuk is out for the season. Debo might be out with illness. Jennings is still dealing with his hip injury and is questionable to play. Kittle's dealing with a foot, and CMC isn't going to return until after the bye.
Blake, can you play receiver?
20 years ago.
That That ain't gonna work.
No. So I'm sitting Purdy. I'm starting Purdy in my personal money league because I have to, but I recommend everyone else sits Purdy.
So wait a minute, you're starting even though he's got all these guys out, you're starting him. You're not thinking about picking up anybody else? Drake
My
May, maybe.
Drake May is not available in my money league.
Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Is anybody else
Bo
available?
Nix, Russell Wilson.
Oh,
There's not much.
okay. I got you.
And I don't know if it's worth dropping
A player.
my
I get
players
it.
right now to obtain a quarterback for 1 week.
Understand. Well, I think that's an easy decision in terms of sitting Brock Purdy with all the weapons that were at his disposal that are not at his disposal this week. So definitely somebody you should not be playing if you can help it, Fanatics.
Speaking of
My sit of
weapons,
the week.
not at your
Yeah,
disposal.
I think. Yeah, I think we're going down the same road with weapons that not at our disposal. Baker Mayfield. Obviously, we saw the game Monday night. Evans is hurt with a hamstring. Godwin is out with a dislocated ankle that looked gruesome. So he's without his top two targets. Big losses, no doubt. Shake and Bake has been playing at an MVP level. I will give him credit. He's been playing great. Even when they lost those guys, he still, I mean, he threw for a lot of yards. Fantasy-wise, he had a great game. They just didn't win. But moving forward, it's going to be hard to keep up that pace when you lose your number one and your number two receiver. Now, Evans will be back, but we all know Godwin is out. But Evans probably minimum of 2 or 3 games. So how is Baker Mayfield going to play? So at this point, while he could have been a starter for you over the last several weeks, at this point, I am sitting Baker Mayfield moving forward.
I would agree with you. It's really hard to sit Baker Mayfield until you have Evans back. There's weapons that will benefit, like we talked about, like Auden and possibly McMillan.
Sure.
But not starting Baker Mayfield.
Nope.
He'll do enough to get them fantasy relevant, but there are way better options out there.
100%.
I'm staying in San Francisco for my running back start of the week.
No, you're all in on the Niners-Dallas game this week.
I swear that was not the case. I was just going player position by position and looking for matchups and things that I liked and didn't like. And this week with Mason, how do you not start Jordan Mason going against Dallas? I mean, they lost Ayuk, potentially lost Debo. How does that affect the game plan? Like, they're just going to freaking run the rock. You're playing one of the worst run defenses in the league. Run the ball. Dallas has allowed the 4th most points to fantasy running backs. They've also allowed 4 running backs to exceed 19 PPR points. Run the rock. Start Jordan Mason. This is going to be his last week to shine. Yeah. He has to put a stamp on his name now, because after the next week, which is his bye week, CMC's back.
Yeah. So for all you Jordan Mason folks that handcuffed him or didn't handcuff him, this might be your last week. So get as much as you can out of him, because he's got a juicy matchup against it. We've all seen Dallas's defense. We don't even need to talk about how bad they are. So totally agree with your start of Jordan Mason this week against the Cowboys. Now mine, I picked the guys I think has been so underrated this year in Kenneth Walker III. This guy last week, he was sick for whatever type of sickness he had, and still rushed 14 times for 69 yards, had 2 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown. And he missed 2 games this year and is still a top 10 fantasy running back. He's facing a Bills defense that has given up 132 yards rushing a game. Kenneth Walker III is a must start this week.
That's locked and loaded, Jason. When he's in and he's playing, you have to start him.
Oh, yeah.
I think Geno Smith has done well enough.
I mean, he's
with his receiving core to keep them from loading the box to stop him. So unless you're facing like a Baltimore defense, in which case you still might start him, you just really have to reel in your expectations.
Sure. I think he's definitely an every week starter. I mean, this week he could be the top fantasy running back this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he was number 1.
Might be. Speaking of Baltimore's run defense, my sit of the week is going against Baltimore's run defense. I know everybody is excited that Nick Chubb's back. Yes, Nick Chubb scored a touchdown last week. But did you see Nick Chubb also went 11 for 22? I don't know how good you are at math, but that's 2 yards per carry, Jason. That's
That
low.
is not very good. That's
And that's
low.
against the Bengals run defense. Now, they're better than they were early in the year because they got some people back. They got a little bit of healthy on the D line, but 2 yards per carry against any defense is not good. This week he's got Baltimore. They've allowed one single running back in 7 weeks to have more than 46 yards in the game on the ground. One.
Wow.
Chubb's only hope this week to any fantasy relevance at all is to fall into the end zone on a goal line carry like he did last week against the Bengals. I don't even know if I start him in a flex position this week.
I mean, there's no way. I agree with you. I mean, what do you think Baltimore is going to do? That Jameis Winston's playing quarterback? You think they're going to be keen on him or Nick Chubb?
Right.
And who are their receivers other than Joku? I mean, let's be honest. Like Cleveland's just kind of again the land of misfit toys. There's a bunch of toys there, but we don't know any of those guys' names. So if Baltimore was smart, which they are, they'll just gang on Chubb and say, "Hey, Jameis, you beat us. Jameis Winston. Let me repeat that. Jameis Winston, you beat us." And they should probably be salivating to hear those words. But yeah, for me, this is a no-brainer. I agree with you 100% on Nick Chubb.
I'm kind of shocked at your sit of the week,
Now,
though.
in terms of I know I am too, but my sit of the week, and this guy's been, you talk about consistency. This guy's been consistent the whole entire year, even spilling over into late last season. But Kyren Williams, another guy, just like Kenneth Walker III, who's been consistently in the top 5 running backs for fantasy this year. He's going against a stout Minnesota Vikings defense led by defensive coordinator Brian Flores, only giving up 80 yards rushing a game, which is league. This week, tough Kyren Williams, and I'm sitting him this week. No, not playing him at all.
Ooh.
Even at a flex. I don't like the matchup on Thursday night. I don't like it. I know.
I think that's the only way that Los Angeles scores.
Well, who says they were going to score?
Might not.
All right, we'll see. But no, I mean, okay. Obviously, most fantasy folks aren't going to sit him, but temper your expectations. I mean, let's be honest. Like maybe a flex. I mean, he's going up against a tough defense. I mean, we've seen what the Vikings defense can do. Nobody saw that coming either, but they're pretty stout. And even though I would assume they'll have Kupp and maybe Puka back. Maybe I don't know. I think Kupp's definitely back. Yeah, but still, I just don't. I don't like the matchup. It's a Thursday night game, correct? It's a Thursday night game, right? Short week. Yeah, you know how those Thursday night games are usually low scoring. Guys, it's not really pretty football, so I would expect the defenses to kind of run rough shoot in this game. And with that being said, the Vikings defense is pretty good. Clearly, they can stop the run, and I see them keying on Kyren Williams and trying to let Matthew Stafford beat him with his arm.
I heard some rumors today about Matthew Stafford possibly to Minnesota. Did you hear those rumors?
I did not.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know how valid they are, but that was all over the fantasy socials today.
I could see Matthew Stafford in Vegas, but not Minnesota. That makes no sense to me. But again, who knows who's spreading those false rumors out there? But that's a trade that would be. I mean, you got Samuel and you got JJ McCarthy next year. So why would you go down that road? But who knows? Crazier things have happened.
Yes, sir. What about your start of the week at wide receiver, Jason?
We're going all in on the Falcons, baby. Woo!
See that.
Atlanta, the Dirty Birds. Clearly, we saw something on Monday night that was pretty bad, and that was the Bucs defense. I mean, Blake, you saw Lamar right? Lamar Jackson carved him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. So that aforementioned Bucks D is allowing the fourth, most standard fantasy points to wide receivers in the last 4 weeks, as well as giving up 7 touchdowns to wide receivers during that span. Drake London, start him, start him, start him. Look for Drake London to go sicko mode on the Bucks this weekend.
Well,
Yes.
either you're going to be right or I'm going to be right, because I don't know if we can both be right, but I'm saying Darnell Mooney.
Oh, we could both be right. Okay.
So let's go back in time. 3 weeks ago, Darnell Mooney had 16 targets, reeled in 9 of them for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns against this same Buccaneers defense. Now, it's unlikely that it happens again because lightning doesn't strike twice, but he's going to have a good season because Mooney, or a good game, I'm sorry, because Mooney does have 3 games of 8 or more targets in the past 5. And as you said, the Bucs defense is not good. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. One, if not both of these players are going to go bonkers.
Has that ever happened on the show where we pick two people at the same position? I don't think so.
Same team, same position? I don't think so either.
I don't think they'll see. That's interesting. That's interesting. So clearly, we're all in on the Hawks. I'm sorry, the Falcons receiving core this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
So Blake, let's get to the sits this week. Who's your sit this week?
Going to Carolina with Deontay Johnson. The news of no Andy Dalton means a Bryce Young start, which means no Deontay Johnson. The first 2 weeks told me everything I need to know about the combination of Bryce Young and Deontay Johnson. 12 targets from Bryce Young to Johnson, 5 catches, 34 yards. He also has the Broncos defense this week, and there's talk of Surtain returning from concussion. Done, signed, sold, sealed, delivered, finished. No, thank you. Sit Deontay Johnson. All formats.
So you're telling me I should sit Deontay Johnson is what you're telling me?
Gosh. I don't care if Surtain's back or not. Sit him.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But if Surtain's back, yeah, don't sit him. Just lock him in a cell because he ain't going anywhere. Totally agree with you. As we talked about earlier in the show, everybody's skill-wise in Carolina takes a bump down because of the quarterback. Andy Dalton gave them some stable quarterback play. I don't see that happening from Bryce Young. So definitely Deontay Johnson is a good sit for the week.
What about you?
Now my sit for the week, Malik Neighbors. Now, he came in all ballyhooed and had a good, I guess, month of September. Let's talk about September. Had a great month of September. Got hurt. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's the number 1 receiver. He's a rookie." But what has he done since, folks? He's had inconsistent quarterback, and he's going up against the Steelers' D balking, and that spells trouble for Malik. The Steelers' defense more interceptions than touchdown passes given up. They have 9 interceptions. They've only given up 8 touchdown passes. Expect the Steelers to double Neighbors and make Daniel Jones beat them with the other cast of receivers. And good luck with that, because I don't see that happening.
Sounds like a lot of Danny Dimes runs to me.
Yeah, that's never good.
Looking to Malik Neighbors.
Never
good. Crap, he's double teamed. What do I do now? Scramble.
Run for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. TJ Watt's coming. TJ and JJ, whoever it is. One of them's coming to get you. Yep. So running for your life. So I can see Dan first life. I just don't see how Malik Neighbors can have any type of consistency against the Steelers. And I mean, their defense, let's be honest, is a typical Steelers defense. They shut people down. They get sacks. They get turnovers. The Giants have offensive line issues, to say the least. So it may not be pretty for that offense in New York this Sunday night.
All right, let's move on to the tight end spot. Who you got for your start of the week?
Oh, my God. The guy you traded, I'm starting this week. Mark Andrews. Blake, my boy is back. I know. Small sample. So I've been in that realm for the last several years, and he's starting to show up. Now, he's got a good matchup. In my opinion, he's got a great matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland's got good corners. They did the best they can against the Bengals receivers last week, but you're talking about two of the best in the league, so they were going to have their issues. Look for the Ravens to target the middle of the field this week against the Browns. Come on, MA, let's go. Let's get back to what we know. We know you're the top tight end in fantasy. Let's get back to that. And here's the thing, Blake. ESPN had him ranked the 17th best tight end this week. 17th. Are you kidding me? This is Mark freaking Andrews. This is no Joe Schmo off the street. That is disrespectful, Blake. Cade Otton, Tucker Kraft, Zach Ernst, 85-year-old Zach Ernst is ranked higher than Mark Andrews. Come on, man. Start Mark Andrews this week, coming off a 2-touchdown performance against the Bucs. 17th? Come on.
3 touchdowns in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
My start, though.
I'm not surprised by your start of the week.
No,
Yeah.
I'm excited about this one. I'm in on Cade Otton. There's opportunity is presenting itself, and that's what this is all about. Last week, 10 targets, went 8 for 100 against Baltimore. A lot of that was in garbage time. I get it, but they were leaning on him when they didn't have Evans and Godwin. Evacuated targets in Tampa Bay equals opportunity. He's going to get his chance to shine. I'll take that stock.
Oh, his been in his career. Mm-hmm. He's been in Tampa for a little bit. This is Cade Otton's time to shine. If he is even close to being available, which I can't believe he would be after last week. A lot of people probably get him tomorrow when the waivers go through, whenever your waivers go through. Just pick him up. If you need a tight end, and we know again, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but the way the tight end position has been this year, Cade Otton can get you upper echelon points in the tight end position this week, and then moving forward, because he's really going to be Baker's only trusted target. He's going to have other people he can throw to, but you can tell he trusts Cade Otton, and that's good for fantasy owners, and that's good for Cade Otton because he's put up numbers.
Go out and pick him up if you need tight end help. Hey, Jason, we got breaking news in the college football front.
Oh, we do?
Here we go. Winless Kennesaw State, a 27.5-point underdog, stuns the undefeated Liberty for its first win versus an FBS team.
Wow.
Woo.
Oh, my goodness. I don't even... College football, man. I can't believe that is amazing. Congratulations to Kennesaw State. I don't know what it is, but hey, we give you a couple claps, clap action for them. Wow. That is I didn't see that one coming. I guess neither did Liberty.
No. Defeated and undefeated.
Wow. All
right, let's get back to the NFL. Your sit of the week, Jake Ferguson. Tell me why. I had him in my starting lineup.
No, because it's Dallas, and you don't know what you're going to get out of the Cowboys from week to week. I mean, they are so, that place is like the worst in America. Like, it's one guy this week, this guy this week. The owner's talking about this, the owner's talking about that. Last year, Jake Ferguson was really consistent. Like, you knew what you were getting out of him, but we have no idea what we're getting out of the Cowboys offense. First of all, they can't run the ball. Dak is kind of a shell of himself. He can't get the ball to CD or Ferguson. So my sit of the week is Jake Ferguson. I'm not trusting Jake until I see more production out of him. I don't see any reason to play him. I would play him over the guys we talked about before. Like, I would play Cade Otton over him, Mark Andrews. I mean, a lot of guys. I just don't see the production. And we thought Jake Ferguson would be definitely upper tier tight ends. He's definitely disappointed, just like a lot of tight ends, but especially in that offense where you really only have CeeDee Lamb. I expected him to shine more, and it just hasn't happened.
Sam Laporta or Jake Ferguson this week?
Start?
Yeah.
I start Sam Laporta. Even though you're sitting him, I still start Sam Laporta over Jake Ferguson.
Gosh, I'm sitting him. Where has he been this year?
I agree.
He talk about number one tight end, yada yada yada. Kelsey's dropped off. Sam Laporta, first round, second round conversation. No, he's not done anything so far this year. And this week's not going to be any different. He's facing a Tennessee defense that's just got scorched by the Bills. I mean, gave up big time points to Buffalo. They've been good against the run, not so good against the pass, but they have allowed the third fewest points to the tight end position. Detroit has no need to force it this weekend. They're going to pass it to their wide receiver threats. They're going to give it and pass it to their running backs. Sam Laporta is going to continue down this trend at least one more week, in my opinion. And in Dak we trust, I would start Jake Ferguson over Sam Laporta.
Ooh, all right. We're gonna have to come back to that one. Let's see who did better, Jake or Sam. That's I tell you what, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel with these tight ends, man. Every week, I'm just like, whoa, it is. I mean, if you thought at the beginning of the year we've been mentioning the name Cade Otton, I'd say you're crazy. And not talking about Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, or Sam Laporta. We're talking about Cade Otton. I'd be like, listen, you're crazy, man. I don't know where planet you come from, but tight some studs. I've never heard of Cade Otton, but that's where we are with the tight ends in fantasy. Cade Otton is getting starts over conceivably even Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, and Sam Laporta. That is crazy to me. But
yep,
again, it's a crazy year in fantasy for tight ends.
Sure has been. Staying in Tennessee and Detroit. Survivor picks.
Yes.
Detroit over Tennessee. It's my safe pick of the week. They're favored by 11. They're leading the way in the popularity popularity aspect with an anticipated 35% pick percentage. Detroit's on fire, as you mentioned, with Mr. Jared Goff and his performance of late. And as like I said, they're not going to need their tight end to go win this game against Tennessee. Tennessee's offense is garbage. They just gave up DeAndre Hopkins for pennies on the dollar, which it wasn't much anyways. But, I mean, where's Ridley been? I mean,
APB. Where is he? Is he even in Nashville?
And then
that's
Tyler
a waste
Boyd.
Of talent.
I mean, why did they go get Tyler Boyd? Tyler Boyd hasn't done anything. The only name that's worth any stock at all in Tennessee is Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard. Yep. Only one.
So my safe pick of the week is Detroit over Tennessee for my survivor pick. Now, my caution might be a bit of a stretch, but hear me out. Be careful picking the Jets over New England. That sounds crazy. Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, newly acquired Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. They just got Hassan Reddick back. You're telling me that the Patriots are going to beat them? Now, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is it's an away game. It's a division matchup. I realize New England just got thumped by the Jags, but they were up 10-0 at one point, which that kind of makes it even worse when you look at the loss. But I still think Drake May is breathing some life into New England's offense. And it's obvious that he's still figuring it out. But what you don't want to be is on the losing side of this when he does figure it out. This one's risky. I'm just think twice before you pick this game.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. And the Patriots, their coach called them soft. I mean, basically said, we got a bunch of soft guys on this team. Now, I've been playing football for a long time. There's a lot of things you call a football player that he would be okay with. Soft ain't one of them. So I'm expecting New England to give the Jets a run for their money. Now, to your point, will they win? Who knows? But this is definitely a caution pick for me. I see New England giving them a game. And again, I've never been on the Jets wagon, and I'm not going to get on the Jets wagon. There's not even a wagon to get on. I think they're flawed. I think this is a team that was put together without any money, without any rapport, without any, it's just not a team. It's a bunch of guys out there They're just playing football. Like they don't have an identity. Like you know what you're getting with the Steelers. You know what you're getting with even the Browns or the Patriots. You get hard talk. I mean, what are the Jets? We don't even know what the Jets are. Do they run the ball? Do they pass the ball? And let's be honest, they got a 41-year-old quarterback that's running around there like a statue, or can't run. I'm sorry, can't run. He's a statue. And I just don't. This Jets team was constructed the wrong way. They thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be their savior. They neglected other areas, and now they're paying the price for it. So, to Blake's point, be careful. Jets over New England.
Where are you at with your safe pick of the week?
Oh, my safe pick. I think this is as safe as you can get. I got the Denver Broncos over the Carolina Panthers. I mean, when I found out Bryce Young was starting, I was like, okay, who are they playing? Oh, Denver in Denver? Oh, easy. I don't need to go into any stats or percentages. Bryce Young starting, and he's playing against one of the top defenses in the league. A guy who hasn't played in weeks is playing against the league. I don't see any way, shape, or form Carolina even keeps this game close, to be honest with you.
But Jason, what about the rules?
What do we say about the rules? Sometimes the rules don't apply in certain situations.
Rules don't apply to Bryce Young?
Yeah, I'll get to the rules of my caution pick, but for the rules for this game, it does not apply because this guy started and he's kind of showing you his hand, and his hand has not been very good. So I don't expect that to change anytime soon. And again, if you're going to start him, I know Andy got hurt, so that's probably why he started, but this is the wrong team to start Bryce Young against the Denver Broncos with that defense. Not a chance. So my caution pick, now we're talking about rules. Baltimore over Cleveland, folks. Rules.
Oh, the rules apply for this
division game. Oh, definitely. Definitely the rules apply for this one. We got a division game that's on the road, short week, new quarterback for the Browns, big on Monday night. Ooh, Blake. All the makings of an upset in the land. Now, could it happen? Yes. Will it happen? Probably not. But I expect the Browns to come out with a little more fight. I think the whole Deshaun Watson thing was getting old and it was wearing out the locker room. I think at least Jameis will kind of reinvigorate the room. You know what I mean? Whatever that word is.
Invigorate.
Get people invigorate. Get people jazzed up about the game. I think the Deshaun Watson thing, is he going to play? Is he playing? I think that whole thing just wore people out. So I think the Browns come out with a little more fight and energy. And I think initially they keep it close. Do I think the Ravens are going to win eventually? I do. But again, this is to watch out for, fanatics.
I was counting. That's a lot of rules you added in there, Jason.
Those are our rules. What added?
I know.
Yeah, I know that's what.
On the road, short week, new QB.
Right. Boom. Rules.
That's a good one, man. I like it.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, buddy.
What's your question, buddy?
What's the best way to get your Sunday started right? That's right.
The Sunday six-pack.
Just tastes so good when it hits your lips.
It does. Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth. I love it.
Dude, we went 5 for 6 last week.
Which one did we miss?
Mine. Hunter Henry didn't get a touchdown.
Honestly, I didn't know. I was trying to put you on blast or anything. I didn't know.
But I'll tell you what.
Good. We're good. 5 out of 6. That's not bad.
Bubba means business covered that 30.5 yards.
Oh, Bub. We love you, Bub. Appreciate you, bruh.
Told you that was a lock.
Maybe the only time a Bub will ever be a lock in anything. But hey, you got to play the odds. Who you got this week, Blake? What's your top 3 or what's your 3 bets for the week?
My first 3, 2 of which come for Thursday night. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, when we upload, take note. Aaron Jones over his long run of 14.5 yards. Aaron Jones has covered this in 4 of 6 weeks that he's played so far this season. Aaron Jones rates 8th in explosive yards gained this season. He's also playing the Rams. They've allowed 5 running backs in 7 weeks to have a rush that's longer than 14.5 yards. Seems like a lot to me.
A lot of nuggets you gave out, buddy. A lot of nuggets.
Yeah, there's more where that came from. Justin Jefferson, anytime touchdown, and that's negative 138. So you're not going to get a big payday on that. And that's because he scored a touchdown in 5 of 6 games this season. He does have a solid matchup against the Rams, who have allowed 7 wide receivers to score touchdowns. And Justin Jefferson has gone over 100 yards in all 3 of his games against the Rams in his career. He's going to have a good game. My final one, going back to Baltimore and Cleveland, Nick Chubb under 45.5 rushing yards. Did you catch this, Jason? My sit of the week was Nick Chubb, and the reason being, only one running back all season has passed 46 rushing yards. I get on DraftKings and look, and I shit you not, they have the over-under at 45.5. Fascinating.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
It's only happened once against Baltimore. Nick Chubb with his 11 for 22 does not change that. Sign me up under 45.5. I put the bet in today for that.
No, I mean, the stats bear it all. I don't, Nick Chubb is not getting over 45 yards against Baltimore's defense. If anything, the Browns are going to be throwing the ball a ton because they're already down a lot.
That's right.
Yep. I like him, Blake. You got Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, and Nick Chubb. Nice.
A couple Thursday night specials, and then
yeah, those Thursday night specials can be tricky though. I'm going to definitely keep an eye on those. I might have to wager a little bit on those those first 2 you had for sure.
You got anything on Thursday night?
I do not, but I think I got 3 solid ones for this weekend. My first one, Bengals versus Eagles in the over, which is 47.5. To Blake's point last week, you got 2 high-powered offenses and so-so defenses. That equals an easy bet in the over this week. Bengals, Eagles over 47.5. I don't see any way, shape, or form this doesn't become some type of shootout, track meet, whatever you want to call it. I think 47 is being generous. It should be more like 50, low 50s in my opinion. But I think it'll be a shootout. I think both teams will score enough to hit the over. Now, my second bet goes back to Blake's caution pick, the Jets over the Patriots. I got the Pats +7 against the Jets. As I mentioned before, Gerard Mayo called his team soft. And other than being called a quitter, Blake, there's nothing worse in football than to be called soft. The Patriots will show up and keep it close. And to Blake's point again, keep an eye on Drake May. He's balled out the last 2 games as a rookie, and I think he's going to give that offense a much-needed boost. He has already, but I think the Jets they're struggling on defense, and they may struggle to stop Drake May. So that's one that definitely keep an eye on. The Pats +7 against the Jets. And then my last one, I got James Cook anytime touchdown score. I watched Seattle play Atlanta last week, and I saw them give up 2 touchdowns to Bijan Robinson. I don't see any reason James Cook does not score against that Seattle defense, which is not very good against the run. So I got James Cook anytime touchdown score. And finally, I do have a bonus college bet. Now, let me go back to last week's bet. Unfortunately, Purdue didn't hold up their end of the bargain. They couldn't score a damn point. Are you kidding me, Purdue? I can't believe it. So Oregon actually covered the spread. The 27-point spread they covered. But this week, I'm redeeming myself. My bonus college bet, the Indiana Hoosiers. Folks, this is a football bet, not a basketball bet. I got them 6.5-point favorites against the Washington Huskies. Now, college game day will be in Bloomington. First time ever. I've heard Bloomington can be a party town. Well, after this Saturday in Bloomington, dare I say they could be hosting a college football playoff game this year? Wow.
Whew.
Hoosiers over the Huskies in Bloomington, college game day, the whole shebang. Bonus college
Indiana has
bet.
looked good.
They're blowing people out, man. They're not just like beating people; they're beating them down.
I have a family friend whose son was the center, Zach Carpenter at Indiana.
Oh,
He
nice.
left going into the season and went down to Miami. He's a captain, and
Yeah,
he's in the NFL draft list now as a result of going down to Miami. I guess they've got a really good offensive line coach down there
yeah.
that's
Very
renowned
cool.
for NFL drafts.
Well, maybe that's why he went. Congratulations to him. But yeah, I
Miami's
got
doing
the.
great this year too.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got the weather and they're doing good. So let's see, Bloomington, Indiana, Miami, Florida. Which one am I picking? Well, that's an easy one, Fanatics. I think we all know who we're picking.
I think there's a couple more variables you're missing coming from two divorced dads down in
Well,
Miami, Florida.
that is true. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that offline.
That's right. I do have another fun fact for us, though, as we wrap up.
Oh, it is fun fact time, Fanatics.
Derrick Henry is the oldest running back in the league with at least 40 carries. And he is still King Henry. This guy has 872 rushing yards through week 7. It's the most by a player through 7 weeks since 2014. And he single-handedly has more rushing yards than 23 of the other 31 NFL teams.
Wow. I mean, what do you? I mean, first of all, where do you come up with this stuff? And second of all, what do you do with Derrick Henry? I mean, he's been absolutely amazing for the Ravens. Not that the Ravens even needed it, but as I said, I honestly think this is the guy that's going to put them over and get them to the Super Bowl. Now, will they win it? I don't know, but I listen. You can't stop him. I mean, his trade. I dare people to go onto YouTube and put Derrick Henry's training in there. You will see some of the craziest training you've ever seen in your life from a guy that's like 6'2", crazy.
Oh man, Jason, I'm trying to quickly look up and see what we did, what my projection was. I feel like I was 1,313, 1,213. I don't have my numbers in front of me, and I can't find my
Yeah.
spreadsheet quickly. I might have under projected Derrick Henry, and I was over projecting him, I thought, compared
Well,
to most.
you might. Yeah. Well, you could. I had him lower just because I thought they wouldn't give him the ball as much just to get him to the playoffs. So yeah, you had it right, but I think you could throw on a few hundred more yards easily.
Holy cow, 872 through 9 or through
That's
7?
amazing. That's amazing. That should be through 9, not 7. You're right. It should be
Or
through 9.
11, 12?
Yeah. I mean, he's unstoppable. Like he finally has found the offense that works for him and the quarterback. I think a lot of it has to do with Lamar and his ability to run. And you can't key on him because you got Lamar. Before, when he was with Tennessee, you knew their quarterbacks weren't going to run. So you could key on him. But with Lamar, you don't know. And then when he gets going, like he had that run against Tampa, I'm like, man, like, why would you want to put your life at stake trying to tackle that guy? Because that's what you're doing. Amazing. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
And right now, he is on track to beat Eric Dickerson's rushing record.
Crazy.
2105 in 1984.
Yep.
If you extrapolate out Derrick Henry's, he's on pace for 2117.
Oh yeah. Now and that's one of those records you would have thought that would have fallen by now, especially back in the 80s and 90s when teams ran the ball more. It would be ironic in a league that's all about passing that Derrick Henry breaks the all-time rushing record in 2024 when everybody and their mom is passing the ball. That would be kind of ironic to say the least.
Not only that, but Derrick Henry's already eclipsed the supposed fall off for the
Yeah.
running back position. He's 30.
Oh,
That
yeah.
would be insane.
Yeah.
Now,
But
he does get one extra game,
he does, right?
but
But will they even play it? Will he even play in that game is the question.
the crazy part is they barely used him.
In the beginning of the year, they were 0-2.
No, I'm talking about last night or Monday night.
Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah, they didn't.
And then he
need
breaks
to
off an
because-
81-yard run.
Yeah, because Lamar, again, if Lamar's that good and you get Henry, you can't beat the Ravens. I'm sorry. Like, you can't. Like, if Lamar is doing what he did Monday night, if Derrick Henry is like the complementary to Lamar, good luck, man.
And then you
Good
got
luck.
Lamar Jackson lead blocking for Derrick Henry down the sideline.
Oh, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, maybe they'll have Derrick Henry play quarterback and Lamar running back. You never know. I mean, with the Ravens, who knows? Some type of wildcat stuff.
Derrick Henry, he's got some passing touchdowns in his career.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I tell you what, I tell you that's the free agent pickup of the year. And if you're in fantasy, that has to be the fantasy pick of the year at this point, Derrick Henry,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, because you thought he would do okay with Baltimore. Nobody saw this coming, especially after the first 2 weeks. You're like, and now every week he's popping off runs of 40 or 50 yards every week.
I'm going to have to pay attention to his overline more often.
Oh, I pay attention all the time, and I
I'm sorry.
bet it all the time.
His long rush overline.
Run. That would be interesting. That has to be astronomical. And I mean, a lot. We're talking probably 30 yards, maybe.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Earlier, we talked about 14.5 yards for Aaron Jones.
Derrick Henry's like, what? Man, I get that in my sleep, bro. Bump that thing up. At least double that, triple that even.
Give me a challenge. All right, man. Let's wrap it up.
Amazing. Yeah,
I don't know how many of y'all are following us on the YouTube yet, but it's growing over there too. And we're live and it's fun. We got video now. We got Spotify and podcast, or Spotify and Apple, iTunes, right? Apple Podcast. Also on Facebook, Instagram. We haven't been as consistent, but if you're on Facebook, join us in the conversation. We'd love to have you.
And remember, share this episode with your friends and family, especially those who are in fantasy, men, women, children, wherever you got out there. Share this episode, fanatics.
That's
Appreciate
right.
you.
There's got to be a nugget in there for everybody. That's why we cover the Survivor, we cover the bets, and we cover fantasy.
Exactly. Well, fanatics, that's a wrap for this episode of the Sunday Funday Guys Fantasy Football Podcast. And remember, fanatics, to make this Sunday your fun day. All right.
Still having Wi-Fi issues.